The guests were getting uncomfortable, but I didn't care. Technically, Hugh had been right. The plumber had 2 arms, but we weren't in a courtroom and there was no punishment for a little exaggeration. People like mental pictures. It gives them something to do besides just listen. Hadn't we been through this? Instead of backing me up, he'd made me out to be a liar, and oh, I hated him for that. Once he destroyed my credibility with the one-armed plumber, it was pretty much over as far as the rubber hand was concerned. The guests weren't even thinking plastic anymore. They were thinking actual working hands made of flesh and bone and muscle. The mental picture had been erased, and they'd never understand that a hand is defined by its movement rather than its shape. The chefs had fingernails, creases. You probably could have read the palms, but it was pink and stiffish, like a false hand you might use when teaching a dangerous animal to shake. I don't know how it attached or where, but I'm fairly certain he could take it off without too much trouble. While sitting there, just the 2 of us, waiting for blind people who never showed, I imagined how the hand might look positioned on a bedside table, if that was where he kept it. There was probably no point in wearing it to bed. The thing wasn't helpful in any way. The fingers didn't open and close. It was just a deception, like a hairpiece or a false eyelash. The dinner conversation droned on, but the evening was already shot. Anyone could see that. In another few minutes, the guests would look at their watches and say something about their babysitter. Coats would be retrieved, and we'd stand in the hallway saying goodbye again and again as they made their way down the stairs. I would clear the table, and Hugh would do the dishes, neither of us speaking, and both of us wondering if this just might be the one to do it. "I hear you guys broke up over a plastic hand," people would say. And my rage would renew itself. The argument would continue until one of us died, and even then it would manage to wage on. If I went first, my tombstone would read, "It was rubber." He'd likely take the adjacent plot and buy a larger tombstone reading, "No, it was plastic." Dead or alive, I'd have no peace, and so I let it go, the way you have to when you're totally dependent on somebody. In the coming weeks, I'd picture the hand waving goodbye or shooting into the air to hail a taxi, going about its little business as I went about mine. Hugh would ask why I was smiling, and I'd say, "Oh, no reason," and leave it at that. I was in Miami the other day, and I read that story, and this woman came up afterwards, and she said, "That is so funny," she said, "because my mom has a rubber hand." And it was made in France, and it is exactly like the one you're talking about. It has fingernails and creases and everything. And I asked if her mother would have been bothered by that story, and she said no, because the hand is it's just so false-looking. Like when that guy, we were sitting there, and he put a pencil in, and then he went like this, like, like. And I'm trying to pretend like I don't notice anything. And that's what her mother's life is like. It's just people pretending they don't notice it. And so she said that her mom goes out of her way to make a point out of it. And when people come over for dinner or whatever, she'll say, "Here, I single-handedly made you this lasagna." But I love that. I made you this lasagna. Because popping a chicken in the oven wouldn't be that hard, but lasagna with one hand, that's sacrifice.